Hey everyone, welcome to Teach MA Dude, where I'm going to bring you the real analysis and real insights of a practicing Massachusetts teacher. So you know what you hear is going to be from someone who's on the front lines and works the issues that I talk about on an everyday basis. Before I get started, I want to give a big thank you, big thank you to my friend Teacher Therapy. Um, she just posted the interview with me and her today. Very insightful. And thank you already to the people who've started to follow the channel. And welcome to those individuals to our community. And I hope you continue to like, subscribe, and share the videos because they are coming from someone who, again, works with these issues every day. Today's video is going to be about accountability in Massachusetts. And when I talk about accountability, I mean what accountability are schools held to? What happens when people file complaints against schools? And how do people even know when schools are breaking the law? If you watched my interview with Teacher Therapy, one thing you might have heard is that I actually blog about this issue, and it's actually like a pet project of mine to try to raise awareness of how accountability works for schools in Massachusetts and to some extent on the federal level. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, and I hope you enjoy. So right now in Massachusetts, what we have is a system where if you want to allege that a school has violated the law, you can file a complaint with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That could be a teacher, that could be a parent, or any other interested individual. And they do this through what's called the Problem Resolution System, or PRS. Now, PRS is responsible for in taking that complaint, investigating with the school or the district, determining whether the law has been broken, and prescribing a what's called corrective action plan that a school, if they violated the law, is supposed to take to kind of set things right. Now, a couple of things that are interesting about this is that, first of all, and I know this from firsthand experience, when you file a complaint, you are required to actually put your name on it, and you have to include your contact information as well. And that is actually a matter of federal regulation that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education leans into. In my work, I've found that while the DESI is not required to necessarily need contact information to process a complaint, the Department of Education actually does allow them to dismiss any complaint from anyone if they try to file it anonymously. And I'm sure you can imagine from a teacher's perspective how awkward that can be. Imagine if I see my employer breaking the rule. Yeah, I could file a complaint against them, but they're going to know that it was me who filed the complaint. And if they want to then target me for any kind of harassment, even though retaliation isn't necessarily allowed, there's many different ways that they could potentially find to take that out on me and make my job miserable if they wanted to. If I'm within the first 3 years of teaching in Massachusetts and I don't have what's called professional status, they don't really need a reason to not renew me at the end of the year. They could say, hey, you know what? Unfortunately, after giving a lot of thought, we just don't really feel like it's a good fit. And so we're going to kind of go our separate ways. That's all they really need to say. There's no union protection from that. That's just the way it is. They can conduct an observation and say, we were really concerned about X, Y, or Z. There's lots of things they could find that are wrong. Now, if I had professional status, what they could do is they could just make my job miserable until I choose to quit. And that's how they could get rid of me. So really the issue is that there's no way to file that complaint anonymously as a matter of policy and regulation. And if, as you can imagine, that probably is deterring a lot of teachers from feeling that they want to come forward. The other thing that doesn't really make sense to me is why does the identity of the complainant really matter? If you think about it, if a kid, let's say, is being deprived of services that they need because they have a disability, does it matter who complains about it? Does it matter? I don't think it does. The issue is the student has needs. The needs need to be met. And if you think about it, the leadership of the school, and I don't want to be cynical here, but the leadership of the school has a lot of incentive to now not uphold the law. because what they know is that people aren't going to file complaints. Because if they do file complaints, they have to put their name on it and they have to risk being targeted. And that is fundamentally bad because then that sets leaders up to feel that they can be complacent in violating the law. Now, this is not a good situation for anyone, right? It's not good for the teacher because then if the teacher doesn't go forward in filing the complaint, what happens is then they might feel complacent, right? Well, now I'm part of the problem because I see things, but I don't feel that I can report them. And that turns into an issue unto itself. So let's say that the complaint is filed and the school is found non-compliant and the teacher has risked themselves, put themselves out there and put a target on their back just to say the school has broken the law. Well, another thing that is a challenge is once the school is found to have broken the law, there's actually nothing that requires the school to make that finding public. And there's nothing to require the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to post that anywhere on their public facing websites. If you go to the Boston Public Schools right now and you go anywhere in their school and district profiles, such as the accountability section, you'll see that nowhere will you find a list of times they found to have broken the law. Now, I know through my own research that between, let's say, 2020 and present, they've actually been found to have broken the law more than 30 times. So if you think about that, that's an average of more than 10 times per year. But you won't find any of that information online. Why? If you think about it, don't parents, guardians, caretakers, and the community have the right to know when the Boston Public Schools has broken the law? And that's just one example. There are countless cities, towns, districts throughout Massachusetts who break the law. And the issue is the public, in my opinion, has the right to know what's going on in the schools where their kids are going. For example, let's say that in my district where I live, the school was found to have not tested kids on time, right? To have repeatedly failed to meet the deadline to initiate an evaluation. Well, I'm going to want to know that if my child needs an IEP evaluation, because I'm going to say, hey, this district in the past has not timely conducted evaluations. So I need to make extra sure that that doesn't happen to my kid too. I need to know if my child's school has a track record of certain things to engage in the best possible advocacy. And so it really kind of is unfortunate. And I've worked with a number of people, I've talked with a number of people who didn't know this. And if you think about it, have been shocked to know that the school they work at, maybe the school that the child that they know goes to, doesn't know that a school has been found to have broken the law. In recent days, I've talked to other individuals who've said, in my school, people are afraid to speak out. Well, why would they when they know that they cannot speak out anonymously? And then the other issue we run into that I've found through my work is that oftentimes the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education does not engage in looking at these cases of noncompliance with the state law and adjudicating those in an expeditious manner. A case I was involved in a couple years ago as a teacher was filed in November of 2021, was declared closed in March of 2023. So that means it took about a year and 4 months for this school to finally be determined to have been back on track. However, as part of their corrective action plan, they had to retrain the staff. So that means that staff that had come on board since they were found to have broken the law might not have ever known about the retraining and might not have even engaged in that retraining. There's no way to know. Now, the problem is with these corrective action plans is that, believe it or not, they are worked out behind closed doors between the district or school and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So imagine if we took someone to trial, right? The government took a criminal offender to trial. The criminal offender was found guilty. And then the criminal offender was allowed to choose how they would do their sentence. Why would we ever accept that? We allow schools to propose how they would like to do their corrective action. Sure, they're said you need to do a retraining program, but they're allowed to determine the parameters of how they do that. And they can be wildly inconsistent. I worked in a district that was ordered to do a retraining program 2 times in 2 years for very similar things that they did to violate the law. And actually, their second retraining was less strenuous than their first retraining. But as I said earlier, no one knows that these cases are going on. But imagine if the public knew, right? Imagine if the public knew that a district was found to have violated the law 2 times in 2 years. And the response to that violation was not any kind of incremental discipline. There was no more pressure put on that district the second time than there was the first. How do you think that transparency would impact the decisions that are being made? I would say a lot. So I'm sure you're wondering, what can we do about this? Well, in my work, I've actually tried to do quite a bit. One thing I would recommend you do is to contact the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, BESE, at boardofelucation@mass.gov. Now, I've tried to do this. I've actually tried to make a direct appeal to them and ask them to acknowledge what was once a very large backlog of cases that they were still working on, and to commit to transparency, commit to simply making public on their website the instances where a school was found to have violated the law. I was ignored multiple times. They haven't, to this day, have not acknowledged that they need to do anything. And I ask you, if you're a teacher, if you're anyone who's involved in education, ask yourself, how is an agency that's supposed to be helping to oversee education in Massachusetts doing their job when someone comes to them asking them to ensure transparency and accountability for schools, and they say that they don't feel that they need to do anything about it? I'm not trying to say that I don't believe in teacher accountability, because I do. I think the teachers, it's important to hold teachers accountable. As I said in my earlier video, I think that the teachers, the students, and the parents all have things that they need to do to be accountable for success of the learners. But there's shared accountability. Schools and the leaders need to be accountable too. And they're not going to be accountable unless it can be put out there for the public when schools are violating the law. And that includes when it happened, what happened, and what was asked to be done. So as a parent, just so you know, and any member of the community, you are allowed to file a public records request with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And what you can do is, through their portal, you can request that they release the letter of finding for any case against a particular district. Now, when you think about it, this information, though it will be redacted, could very easily be made available or summarized to the public if it could be produced as a public record. And yet, for some reason, they don't feel the need to do so. So I'm calling on the leaders in Massachusetts to do one simple thing: to make a portal or to add to the accountability section of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's school and district profiles page detailed information of when schools violate the law, so that everyone can work together to make schools places of learning, and so that leaders can feel that they are responsible for making the public aware. Because right now, your school that your child goes to could have been found to violate the law, and your administrators will not say anything. In fact, if you are not aware of what special education parent advisory councils are, those are opportunities for parents to be involved in the special education services that go on in the district. They're kind of like an advocacy group. The administrators in the district can look those groups straight in the eye, engage with them on a monthly basis, and never once tell them that they were found to have broken the special education law impacting kids in those districts. And I've talked to CPACs. I've talked to people who run them and been told in Boston, Massachusetts, the district does not tell those groups, despite working with them, despite having web infrastructure in their districts, on their pages, they do not tell these groups that they're supposed to be working hand in hand with when the law is violated. Okay. That is, to me, not making an effort to make everyone part of the learning process. So please, I hope you've heard what I had to say. I hope that you, if you are a parent of a student in Massachusetts, will take action to hold schools accountable. Because I know that we're always talking about how we hold teachers accountable. Again, I am not going to defend teachers who don't do the right thing, but also I hope that you will step up and ensure that schools are taking responsibility when they do not adhere to the laws that they need to adhere to ensure that every student has an equal shot at success. But hey, there might be something I missed here. Please, I encourage you to like, subscribe, leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Put a lot of resources, or I'll try to put some resources in the description so you can investigate this for yourself. This has been another episode of Teach MA Dude. Hope you liked it. Have a wonderful day.